Once again, welcome.
Thank you very much.
I have hosted you a couple of times on Alaji and Alaji.
That's true.
But this is the first time we are sitting.
Yeah, but this is home.
Yeah.
It's always very different, you know.
When was the last time we were actually here?
I can't even remember. It's quite a number of years now. I mean, that was before our friends in power decided to do what they did. So it's been a bit. Yeah.
From your commentary when I just asked how are you, it seemed you were not happy with what you saw when you walked through.
Absolutely. I mean, for me, just we were in office for a period of 8 years, and we had every reason. I mean, take stations like Oman FM, I mean Net2, I mean those what you call those substations being owned by Canada Japan. There's so many of the NPP sympathizers. We could have done any of this that they tried to do to stations that are perceived to be opposing the NPP, but we never had such a thing. I can understand sometimes from people who are sympathetic to the NDC wanting that the same thing be done, that same vengeance be done. I can appreciate it. I know exactly where they come from. But that is something. You see, for the sake of this country, we need to appreciate that if we all want to degenerate, at the end of the day, we destroy this country, and the children and our children to come are simply going to have no country. And all this simply because we are dealing with a group that historically has shown that they care about nothing except to destroy everything on their path, simply to get power. And if you know, people think this is just a recent thing. No, what Nana Akufo-Addo is doing today is simply repeating the very DNA of this group, even long before independence. That's what they are. They destroy. As far as they are concerned, I mean, all this politics is just for them. It's about I get you, I destroy you, because the only way I feel I can survive is when you are destroyed. And that's exactly what they've done. So what Radio Code has gone through, what other stations that are perceived to be opponents of this regime have done, is simply exactly who they've been. You remember even the last time when they were in office, they made it a point that they were going to use what you call the fast track prosecution to simply destroy their opposition. That's really who they are. They don't care. I must destroy you because the only way I can survive is when we are dead. And that comes from people who are absolutely mediocre. Because you see, it's only mediocre, abysmally mediocre people who think the only way they can thrive is when another person is destroyed. If you have confidence in yourself, you know you can still thrive even when the other person is there. So, for example, Radio Gold, you've had competition, but in spite of those competition, you continue to really mount by simply doing what you got to do. But another person will say, you know what, the only way you can survive is that Radio Gold must be off, because we can't compete with Radio Gold. And that is the mindset of the NPP. The NPP family has always been an insecure bunch, pathologically insecure bunch. So they feel the only way they can survive and thrive is to make sure their opponents get destroyed. Now, what it is we are going through this country, in terms of even the politics, which will come even to the economy, is coming from the same philosophy. It's a philosophy that is extremely mediocre. It's a philosophy that is insecure, bunch of liars, pathological liars, and they do everything to destroy everything on their path. That's really what they
are. But when you speak to them majority of the time, because even in the case of Radio Gold, they always refer to the fact that it's about the enforcement of the law. Yeah. And they also your views. Yeah. They would describe your views that you just put forward as radical, extreme. But see, that's not the truth.
Yeah, but you see, you can always use every excuse. You can use every excuse in a book to do what you got to do. I mean, if you want to destroy, you can always what's the name? How do they call it? The Preventive Detention Act. I mean, it was passed through Parliament. Apartheid in South Africa was also legislated. Legislation even in terms of slaves being blacks being enslaved in America, it was also legislated. So you can actually use the law to do anything. But when you are degenerate, you find an excuse to do anything you want to do and think that is justified but like the Bible says, all things are lawful, but not all things are expedient. All things are lawful, meaning you can find an excuse, and legitimate excuse to do what you got to do, but it doesn't mean it's got to be done. But degenerate folks use those excuses to basically get away with what they want to do.
Honorable, let me first then start by asking you. In 2020, you decided you were no longer going to be member of parliament for Kwetey South, and that your lifespan in parliament had come to an end. A lot of people were wondering, are you bowing out of politics among others? At the time, was there an issue? Did you consider that?
Actually, in truth, people do not know, but I actually entered parliament. Let's say it this way: that the parliamentary journey was not one of those journeys that I had like dreamt about and aspired for.
Okay.
If I had wanted to be part, I would have competed for parliament long ago. In fact, my good friend Haruna Idrisu, when he was going to run the first time in 2004, wanted me to run. I said, "No, Fifi, let's do it." And I said, "Bro, I don't think I really have an interest in running for parliament."
Okay.
And I kept it. In fact, when I eventually moved to parliament in 2012, he was like, "I've been telling you this for ages," but I said, it's not really something I really aspire for long. At the end of the day, I moved in because there are moments where you needed to have the experience of serving your people, and I thought, having served the NDC at the very highest level, and having had the privilege of moving even into ministerial position, I needed to make myself available as far as the good people of Kwetey South are concerned. So basically that. But trust me, people who were close to me knew that I was never intending to remain in parliament for long. No, not at all. We all have our areas of great passion. Let me just say this: parliament for me was not an area of great passion.
For you?
No. It's never been
but
an
it
area of
offered
great
you
passion.
a great privilege to represent your people.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I love the opportunity to serve my people. But for me, a place of great passion is a place where you wake up every morning and your heart is on fire. That really was not. The things that excited me in parliament were not really that many. For example, I love the economic debate. I love the finance committee issues. I love issues that had to do with economy. But the general legislation never really gave me. If, for example, you take my good friends like Haruna, you take my good friends like Okujo, those are people you can see they love legislation. Every single part of legislation, they're part of it. If you watch me well in parliament, I really spoke just on some issues, not so many on the other, because there were not things that I have things that really, really thrive. And let's say it this way, that the opportunity to serve my people was a beautiful one. I was able to use that to be able to do to be able to lobby for quite a number of development for my people. I had the opportunity to speak on their behalf. But staying in parliament for long was not. In fact, by the end of the first term, those who were close to me knew that I was going to go maximum second term. Maximum. I actually indicated to quite a number of them that that's the final one for me. It was not a place that I intended to be for too long. So the whole concept, in fact, often I tell my people who try to be Mugabe's in parliament that, wow, it takes a lot for them to want to do that. There's no way I could really.
Well, was it because of the because a lot of people talk about the pressure that's usually on you when you're a member of parliament?
Yeah, but then if it's something you really, really love,
okay,
you are able to ride along with that pressure. You understand? I mean, if it were a place for me of great skill, and for me, passion is important. You understand? Some people remain in what they do because they just feel, Charlie, without this, what else can I do? I've never been that way. So, I've in fact, people do not know my history well, but I've been somebody, I've walked away from positions. I walked away, for example, from a financial sector job while NDC was in opposition. And I did that purely because that time came and I felt I needed to. And I'm talking opposition here. I mean, we were in 2002 when I walked away from what you call a job as a stockbroker, financial analyst, because I felt that moment came and needed to really go in and help this party. Okay. So I started first with the office of President Rawlings, then gradually moved to become what you call the propaganda secretary of the ANC. You know, so that for me was important. It was a moment of passion. And at the time when I took that decision, people were like, oh God, why do you walk away? In fact, people were actually like, oh, look at this guy. You walk away from a financial position that gave you an opportunity to rise in the private sector, to go and become an opposition person. They'll be happy. They see what it says. When you tell them, I was working the former president of, they say, what do you mean? How do you leave your financial office, go and work with the former president? How much money can you even get? Because for people, they look at the immediate survival. Okay. I feel my heart is always number one. When my heart is happy, I'm glad. And also, moving away from Parliament was not so much of a difficult decision for me. I thought, no, it's not.
Listening to you, there's also feel that the height of that passion when it comes to Honorable Fifi Kwetey was when you were propaganda secretary. It was, in fact, somebody just wrote that you were louder than you were more. I think they said you were more vocal than social media at that time. That everybody could hear Honorable Fifi Kwetey.
I understand when people say that. You know, some people actually tend to feel that some way, somehow, my fire has somehow gone down. But people do not know it's not. It's not. Though, you see, let's just say this way. It's just change in different ways. Okay. Let's say it this way. For me, it's not just NDC. It's also about nation. Okay. What people do not know about me is that I love this party a great deal. But please, I'm not one of those who is prepared to allow this party to take this country itself down. So when there are things that this party wants to do that I feel is against the country, I fight against it. The same way I fight against the people, the same way I fight for things to be done well in my party. Let's say this way, that I've had some concerns, and some of those concerns have to do, you see, because of the way the NPP has become such a degenerate political group. And when I keep saying the word degenerate, I'm not in any way intimating that every person in that party is wrong, or every person in that party is a bad person. No. But I'm taking the spirit that animates that party is a very degenerate spirit. It's a spirit that clearly will plunge this country down, will take this country all the way down, because it's a group that believes in just nothing but getting the end for them. That's what it means. But there are good people in it, just like there are good people in everything. I'm saying NDC, unfortunately, sometimes when you see, like you say, when you associate closely with another group, if you're not careful, that degeneration starts to pervade through you as well. Okay. And I've had that concern that even there are members of our own party, by proximity to this degenerate bunch, have started literally imbibing some of that. And that for me has been a major issue. It bothers me. Because, you know, this NDC movement is not a perfect movement. It's not a movement of angels. But it's a movement that was founded on deep principles. It was a movement that came as a result of a certain fire that wanted to see a nation become greater. It was built on character. President Rawlings, despite all his imperfection, was a man who had genuine, deep belief and values, and he basically has been a founding father of this movement. It's a man that had sacrifice as his mind, a man that felt a nation needed to transcend a certain darkness and build to become a beacon of light, just as Kwame Nkrumah aspired for. So when I saw some of our own people literally feeling that some of the degenerate ways of the NPP was becoming normal, you listen to some of our young people and they feel that is what politics must all be about. It's about you must get what you want no matter how. It doesn't matter whether you lie. It doesn't matter what you do. You need to do what you got to do for power. I started becoming concerned. Okay. So my quietness has also largely been because I've been bothered by that. Okay. I feel charity must begin at home. The NDC must appreciate that, listen, we can never afford to become like this plague. We can never become like this degenerate, but we cannot allow this party to drop to that level. So I became a little quiet because I felt, listen, people just feel this like a competition. They've done, let's just come and do the same thing. I do not feel no. We must always strive to be on the higher level for the sake of the future, for the sake of our children, for the sake of Ghana, for the sake of Africa. So a bit of my quietness was because I felt a bit disappointed about some of the tendencies I was seeing in the NDC Islam. Because for me, it's never been a movement to say, oh, okay, let us also get an opportunity to do what MPP is doing. No. If it has to be done, we must do it well. We must not allow ourselves to descend to that level. So my fire has never changed. Because I feel people need to appreciate that the fire must be geared towards a nation that will become great and strong. Not just it's not for me. It's not an issue of competition per se. It's not just about beating MPP. It's about doing what is right for nation. About doing what is right to build foundation for the future. That's why people feel that
you must have been a big fan of Professor Johnny Vasanta Mills. Massive fan. I mean, for me, I feel, anyway, God knows better why he had to leave so early. He had been less than 4 years, then he had to go. Like they say sometimes, the good ones are too pure for this realm in which we are. A very sad realm where people do not see the big picture. And I mean, that was a towering show. And I would say, NDC, we've been privileged.
we've been privileged. I mean, I would say generally that the foundations have been good. We've had very good noble men, very noble men. And Prof. Mills is one of the best that you can have. A genuine man of character. It's not perfect, but a man of character. A man who places nation before all things. A man who believes in giving the best, I mean, for his people. Who believe life is not about what you get as an individual. Life is about what contribution you make. And above all, he remains simple, remains very humble. I love the man. I genuinely love the man. I would say my greatest passion in joining this whole movement has been Rollins. I mean, since I was young, Rollins was the inspiration. I still love Rollins a great deal. But Prof. Mills, genuine respect. Genuine respect, yeah.
What about him?
What can I say? You know, I mean, you can see, I mean, this was a consummate intellectual. As many people would come, and I'm talking about genuine. I'm talking about genuine intellectual.
It was quite brainy.
Absolutely. I mean, you can see he's a genuinely consummate intellectual, sharp intellect. But what I love about that man is not even the intellect; it's the simplicity of the man. Is a fact that this is a man who understood. The only I can call it this way. This was simply a man who reached the highest level, while not forgetting his deep roots. Okay. So he remained very grounded, very simple. He understood that. As opposed to, for example, the people we have in the empty barrels who make the most noise. You see, for example, empty barrels like Baumia. They would throw about their doctor of this. Meanwhile, they know nothing. You understand? And the process, they are also what you call pathological liars. You know, so you are it's a toxic mix of being an empty barrel and also being a liar. You understand? So you are in terms of the you know, I keep saying that all this talk about free SHS, I keep talking about that. Listen, free SHS is a great thing, and I'm not diverting at all. Free SHS is a great thing. But see, people make the mistake. If going through school is all it takes to transform a nation, then we should not be producing Baumia. You understand? I mean, a character like Baumia, if education is all it took, then you can see, I mean, a person like that with no credibility, with no capacity to tell the truth, who basically is a serial liar. Education produces people like that. So it tells you that the problem is not just education; it's a proper quality education. That is not education not just on the heart, but also of the mind, but also of the heart. And that's what Prof. Mills embodies: a heart that is properly educated, a heart that has been illumined, a heart in which light is. Then, of course, guiding the mind, then we are talking a country that can be better. And this country should be looking forward to more of the Atamils. Not just people who've got heart, mind, who've got head, but people who have got genuine heart.
How do we do that?
Pure. What can I say? No, it's not school. It's not school.
How do we do that?
It's not school. He has to come from the home.
Okay.
It has to come from the home. And that is a conversation that this country must start to have more. We need to start putting more emphasis on the home, the training at home, the family upbringing. You understand? Otherwise, you know, if we continue looking at people like Baumia as models, this country will be completely destroyed. Will be completely destroyed. And that unfortunately is happening. You listen to a lot of people, they think life is all about you've gone to school, you've got qualification, and they think that's no. Character is number one, character is number two, character is number three. Every other thing can be bought. I can buy any qualification. I mean, what I mean by, like I can bring anybody in. For example, if I need astrophysics, and now myself I don't know how I can hire an astrophysicist to come from either America or to come from Japan or from a different part. If I need somebody who's going in financial, what you call wizardry, I can bring in from Dubai, I can bring in from Singapore, from different parts of the world. But to get a man who is truthful, a man who is honest, a man who has got character, a man who wants right things to be done, a man who loves his country, is ready to do what is right for his country. Number one, you can't hire that. Those are people that must be brought up. They must be trained right from home, through the various schools, through the various institutions, to even rise to become leaders. And Prof. Mills embodied that.
Well, if you just join me, I'm having a conversation with Honorable Fifi Fiavi Kwetey. We will come to the economy, but I want to stay on the Prof. Mills matter a bit more, because yesterday, one of the things that has been happening has been about, because everybody talks about, it was a man who fought for unity. And if you listen to him and you see the way he ran the country, he genuinely believed that if we cannot come to a level where we appreciate that everybody come to the table with something, perhaps we can move forward. For someone like that, the manner in which his 10th commemoration has been marked, what happened on Sunday, the renovation was Sumdue Park and everything. What do you think about it? And knowing him, how do you think you'll feel about it?
I think I feel that first and foremost, I think he will look down upon what, for example, has happened. I would say combination of Kokwanyinoho together with the NPP. He will look down upon that with a lot of sadness. You look upon that with a lot of sadness. I'm sure, knowing him as well, he will say, forgive them because they know not what they do. I think that's what he will be saying. And I'm sure you look at Kokwanyiro in particular and feel sad. Because you know what, if you've been close to Prof Mills, then you must know that Prof Mills is somebody who is not about the individual. This whole joke has been nothing but what you call chronic insecurity. It's a complete joke. It's a complete joke. Now, when you look, for example, about that bus that has been built, and you saw, for example, the inscription on that bus, that tells you that this whole journey is just an individual or a group of individuals who are desperate to literally put themselves in the forefront as opposed to the group. That really is what it is. So I think Prof Mills clearly will feel sad about that, because that's somebody who is thinking way beyond himself. He's thinking nation. He's talking about posterity. They can see the aim is simply to make sure that somehow generations will come and see Nana Akufo-Addo together with Atamis Institute of Kokwanyinoho as the people who have done this. So it's a basic, very personal, very, very, very petty. It's all very what you call insecure agenda by a group of people who are simply thinking about themselves as opposed to seeing the bigger picture. So Prof Mills clearly will feel very, very sad about that. He would have wished that, for example, Nana Akufo-Addo as a president, and the older president in the history of our country, would have the level of maturity, would rise above what you call this pettiness, would rise above this little-mindedness and see something bigger and understand that, listen, for somebody for Prof Mills, who has been a servant of the people, who has risen to the highest position, if at first as vice president, and subsequently become president, he deserves far more than this littleness and this pettiness. I think you'll feel extremely sad, Prof. You look down and shake his head.
Well, since you've come to it, let's come to the current president. And I've sat close to you. On a larger platform, you can ask questions. So sometimes when I listen to you, I realize you feel strongly about the kind of leadership he's provided. The current president, you feel he's failed to live up to expectations. And I realize from listening to you that you feel that he, of all people, should be providing better. He's gone through, he had the experience, he age is on his side, he should be doing better. Why do you say so?
President Rawlings was 45 when he became what you call the constitutional leader of Ghana. I mean, like the president of Ghana, elected. 45. That was quite a young age. So now, because today I'm 55, so I'm 10 years older than President Rawlings was when he became president in 1993. 10 years older. You understand? I can understand, for example, if that young man, 45, who became president, made mistakes like we are saying today. Because what? He hadn't really reached. I mean, of course, 45 is old, but not as old as somebody who is almost 80. When you cross the 70s, mid 70s, approaching 80, your concern should be about the future. Your concern should be about your grandchildren. Your concern should be about legacy. Your concern should not about you. It should not be about. If at the very fact that you even feel that at this level, somebody with this opportunity will still should literally be so much involved in what you call some of these, what you call petty politicking, wanting to destroy opponents, wanting not having the capacity to simply make admission when things are wrong, when things are going the wrong way, having what you call the honor and the strength to say, you know what, I got this wrong. We can do better than this. I thought this was going to be good, but clearly it's not proven right. Even President Kufuor, with all his fault, had the capacity. But you're talking about this president who is much older, who had the greatest experience, is still unable to eat the humble pie, make basic admission, simply because he feels too proud. He feels too ashamed that people are going to say, we told you so. So because of that, you continue driving the wrong way, even though he knows that what he's doing is wrong. I feel absolutely saddened about that. And you can see every single thing is crashing under his watch. Every single thing is crashing under his watch.
Every single thing is crashing?
Education is in paralysis. Simply because, again, he thought he was proving us wrong. When red flags were raised, he said, listen, what you're talking about is easier said than done. It's easier said than done. If it were easy to be done all over the world. He said, no, you can do it. You can do it. Meanwhile, this was a president who, even in 2008, when he was mounting the campaign, those of us who then took him on said, listen, Mr. Candidate, Nana Akufo-Addo, you are even lying about basic education. You were claiming that your government in 8 years had made basic education free, which had not been the case. Because basic education, as of 2000, was not free. The maximum you were giving was capitation grant, which was 3 cedis, and that was for the whole academic year. And 3 cedi was not the cost of education at the basic level. Parents all over this country were still paying in 2008 were making a lot of contribution for basic education in 2008. So we said, Mr. Candidate, you are lying. When you claim that your government had made basic education free, you were lying. At that time, he was already making pronouncement about free education at the secondary level. We said, listen, even the basic level, you've not made it free. So what are you talking about free at the secondary level? So we were already raising the flags and saying, listen, if these things have to be done, they have to be done properly. The proper foundations have to be in place. You need to do it in a manner in which the quality will not suffer. You need to do it in a manner in which it will be sustainable. You need to do it in a manner in which it can be done well for posterity, because education is not something you toy with. But because he clearly pushed, eventually came to power. Instead of coming to power, for example, let me give you a typical scenario. We in 2008, ahead of coming into office, I will just say it this way. One of our main people, who was then the spokesperson for health, peace on his soul, late Leo Kran. Leo Kran was one of the key people in our manifesto group.
Okay.
Yes, if I play the key part, I think in 2008 he was the chairman of the manifesto. And Leo Kran also was then the spokesperson for health. I mean, as in parliament. So Leo Kran kind of gave us the impression that he had done all the necessary research related to what you call, one-time premium.
Okay.
You understand? So on the back of the research and information he gave us, somehow we went into that election with one of the promises in the manifesto talking about what you call one-time premium. That the people of Ghana did not even need to pay anything. If they pay one-time premium, their healthcare needs could be taken care of. So we put it in our manifesto. But when we came into office, it didn't take us too long to realize, no. The calculations on which this one-time premium was based is not realistic.
Okay.
And in office, you can sometimes make a promise, and you come into office, you realize, no, if you want to do that, you will destroy the health sector. So on the back of that, we look at all the possible scenarios, and we said, no, this is never going to be realistic. So what did we do? We drop it. It never again came up. Because we realized that, listen, the emphasis should be elsewhere. We needed to put emphasis on, for example, the infrastructure. We need to put emphasis on making sure the conditions in the health sector were much better, as opposed to forcing to do one-time premium and destroying the health sector. Okay. That is what proper leadership is about. That sometimes you even need to eat the humble pie. People may taunt you, they may mock you, but it's okay. For the sake of the country, for the sake of the future, you have the courage to do what you got to do. But look at Nana Akufo-Addo at his level. He's persisting in doing everything because he's afraid of being mocked. So in the process, he's running everything aground because he's afraid that people will mock you. Come on, be man enough. Be man enough. I mean, you are not perfect. A human being, you can start something and down the road you say, no, it is no. If I want to push it, I will destroy. But that's what he's doing. So for example, education is in crisis. You're talking about even the healthcare issue that I'm talking about. I mean, look at what's happening in the health sector. Even in terms of this whole what you call it, free healthcare issue, virtually all the facilities are grinding to a halt because the same things that are going on. The same things that are going on. A government simply that hasn't got the capacity to tell the truth, that thinks you can govern by propaganda, you can govern by PR. All you need to do is to get your communicators to keep repeating the same lies over and over and over. When you are caught, then you change it to another thing. Then you start blaming your predecessor, or then you look for another one, you blame COVID. Then the next one you blame Ukraine. Then when you are caught, you say no, it's a banking sector that was caused by your predecessor. When they catch you, they say it is the excess capacity. So it's like a government that believes the only way you can govern the country is simply to lie and lie and lie and lie. When you are caught, you lie more, you lie more, you lie more. In the past, I'm sure it would have been easy for them to get various civil society people to maybe go with them. They got their appendages in the media that were defending them. They got other people in different places that were. Now all those people are gradually dwindling because the what you call the rottenness is becoming inside that even those people who were like mercenaries defending them now cannot defend them anymore. So effectively now they are left to their own devices. Only they and their communicators, hoping that somehow they can continue throwing dust in the eyes of the people and believing that somehow that will give them victory. And that is terrible. That is terrible.
But it is not only President Akufo-Addo that you have issues with. You have very deep-seated issues with Dr. Bawumia. Because you were just talking about the fact that if you focus on education, you will produce people like Bawumia.
Absolutely.
You seem not to have such a high view of him.
To be honest with you, Nana Akufo-Addo, for all his I think his main problem is he had a dream to become a president, and by every means, I'm gonna be a president. And after that, when he became a president who is virtually asleep behind the wheel. And basically allowing things to be done under him. Bawumia's case is a worst case scenario. To be honest with you, I mean, I don't think I've seen a politician who is as discredited as Bawumia.
As discredited?
Absolutely. Totally discredited individual. And he has no shame about it. He has absolutely no shame about it. Somebody who lies repeatedly, and when he's caught, he lies more. He lies more. And the worst part is he has this very when he's caught, when he's lying, he laughs about it as if the whole thing is just a joke. I mean, this country is not a joke. This country is not cantata. This country is not comedy. You lie when they catch you, then you lie more and laugh, thinking that people will somehow forget your lies. And then the process you make all this, you try to deceive people to create the impression that you are some kind of economic wizard. Often that, I say, peace on the soul of former Vice President Pakwesi Misata. Peace on his soul. May he rest in peace. But I say all the time that Pakwesi Misata was the reason why this gentleman came across pretending to be some kind of economic messiah. Because Pakwesi was such a gentle guy. So in terms of, I'm telling you, I mean, this gentleman, when I heard him debating Pakwesi in 2012, I'm like, oh my God. But Pakwesi was such a nice soul. I mean, he should have met somebody who was ready to walk all over him, expose him for who he was, show exactly how empty he was. Unfortunately, Pakwesi couldn't do that. And that's why somehow this country got deceived into believing that Bawumia was some special. Listen, in terms of knowledge of economics, and Pakwesi was writing one thing, that his was textbook. The real grounding of economy, he's never been part of real management until he came into office as vice president. Let me just say it this way. It's an empty barrel, and what is happening to the economy of today is simply exposing exactly how empty he is. It's all about what you call spin and throwing words about the real grounding economics he hasn't got. And what is happening today is simply exposing him. And worse than that is the fact that he absolutely has no credibility. He's simply a serial liar.
But at the time we were talking about when he was in opposition, a lot of the people you listen to from civil society, some of them from academia, agreed with the assessments he made of the economy that your government was running at the time.
Sometimes you can excuse some people in the civil society because some of them also basically get seduced by all these should I call it it's easy to criticize, isn't it? I mean, criticism, who cannot criticize? I mean, I don't know how much of a football fan you are, Senna, but those of us who are not like Messi and Maradona or Cristiano Ronaldo can sometimes criticize them when we are seeing things, because it's so easy when you're on the sidelines and watching what is being done. But it's a whole different reality when you get in there. So to be on the sideline and make some of the noises that he was making, it was nothing extraordinary. But those of us who clearly had been, for example, in the Ministry of Finance at the time that he was speaking, I remember in 2012 when he was making all the noises he was making, And at that time, of course, he couldn't get away with it easily. I mean, for while some of us were in that ministry, clearly he could not. But subsequent to that, I would say that some of our friends who took over as far as Ministry of Finance, much as they were trying what they were trying very well, did not combat enough in terms of defending our legacy enough. So we give room for people like Baumia to start prevailing. And of course, the nature of governance is also say that for example, while I was Deputy Minister of Finance, Baumia clearly did not have his way. He dare not. He dare not have his way. Subsequent to the departure, those who took over were doing the work, but in terms of the real, what you call, like speaking to issues between that period, they really didn't do too well. I would say that partly was a problem.
So you agree there was a failure?
Setekwe is a great guy, but in terms of political, what you call political economic communication is not exactly his strength. Okay. He's much more of a technical person. So naturally, you do the technical issue. But people like Baumia, it's not just technicality you take them on. You take them on the political economy, expose their shallowness, expose clearly they are nothing but what you call empty barrels that make a lot of. That's the kind of conversation that needed to be. And I think the period 2013 to 2016, that political economic conversation at the level of NDC did not happen the way it needed to happen. But it was too technical in stages, and so it gave room for people like Baumia to basically come up, and people started thinking that there was some special breed.
But there are those who also suggest that at the time that he was saying all these things, the managers of the economy were confronting the problem that requires a lot of focus. And there was a lot of work that needed to be done.
Yeah, I agree.
As much as they would love to speak about it, there wasn't so much time.
Yeah, I agree.
A lot of work at the time.
Yeah, I agree on that. But see, when you're dealing with people who have made it a point to simply lie continually, you also must appreciate that for the sake of the public out there, you need to be able to defend well as well. You understand? So, as I'm saying, I mean, they try to do what they've got to do, but I would just say that we could have done much better. That's why I said also that, for example, even the economic management leader, late Pakwesi, himself could have done even more. Because ordinarily, at that level, I mean, it was almost like, in terms of protocol, he was the second in command in terms of what you call the NDC government. And Baumia was virtually like the second, I mean, as far as the NPP was concerned. So maybe he should have led that crusade much more than he did. But we all have different temperaments, so maybe the approach was a bit different. I would just say that basically that also allowed, I mean, Baumia basically to become some kind of voice in this country that people thought was some special voice, but honestly, it's nothing special at all. Nothing special at all.
As also speak, we're still going through the difficulties in the economy, and recently, of course, I'm sure you were commenting on the lecture he delivered recently, where he still goes back to say that aside Russia, Ukraine, and COVID, the other problems of the economy were actually ones that were inherited. Yeah. So he keeps going back to that. Do you agree when they said that you left? The finance minister also repeated that in the media budget review, that they inherited a distressed economy. Do you agree with that? That could create the difficulties that they are still confronting up to now?
You know, what I've noticed about them is the belief that no matter how much deep the hole in which you are, you just have to continue digging. Someone hoping that by continuing to dig, something may happen for you to get out of the hole. So that really is what the strategy is. Their point is that, listen, just keep repeating the same thing over and over. Peradventure. That's a biblical expression for maybe, just maybe, some people will start believing it. or a lot of people may start believing it. That's what they're doing. They know deep down that we are really, really like in crisis. We are in trouble. It is obvious that we caused this problem. But you know what? Let's just keep repeating that it is not us. Let's blame every other thing. And let's get our communicators to keep repeating the same thing. And some way, somehow, people may. And sometimes I listen to some people who are in the media, and somehow they tend to even think that, oh, maybe they have a case about the fact that it was really not them, but it is rather COVID or in Russia. And I'm like, listen, that is what happened when people continue repeating the same lies over and over and over and over again. Listen, the truth is actually clear. And interestingly, the same Baumia, he, in opposition, said, how is it possible for crisis that is supposed to be global, a problem that's supposed to be international, to leave every other country and come to only Ghana? That's what he said, which is one of the rare instances where he spoke the truth. Because in that case, basically, he was trying to take us on. So he said something which actually was factual. That is the situation in which we live today. How is it possible that of all the countries run about us, all the countries in sub-Saharan Africa, only us are having inflation of about 30% today? Only us have had our currency that has depreciated by over 20% as we speak. Only us have a problem relating to flight of capital. Portfolio investors absolutely having no interest in us. Our bonds literally have been virtually downgraded. The country itself have been downgraded in terms of our economic performance. Very little, confidence in our economy. Our reserves have taken a hit. Only us. So how could it be that every other country has been spared except us? So clearly the problem is the government that is in charge. Now, it could also not be by virtue of what you call the economy they met. Because the same economy they met in 2017 gave them 8% growth. Okay. That's the same economy they met, gave them 8% growth. The same economy they met in that 2017, handed them two massive oil fields in addition to the Jubilee field that was available. So 3 oil fields, which is the highest that any group has had. That same foundation gave them, we handed over a balance of payment surplus. We never even had the privilege of getting a balance of payment surplus when we took over the last time. We had a deficit. They actually got the privilege of having a balance of payment surplus. They, for example, met inflation that was coming down. We took it down from about 20%, brought it down to 15.4%, and continued going down even the first month they took over. When we took over from them, inflation actually was up 18% and went up further to 21% because of the problem they left behind. They were lucky to have an economy that actually had a resolution of inflation before handing over to them. When it took over, treasury bill rate was about 26%, ahead of 2015. By the time we were leaving office by the end of December 2016, we had brought treasury bill rate down to 16%. Mm-hmm. For the whole of their 4 years that they were in office, they were not able to take treasury bill from 16%. They were not able to go below 13% for 4 years. We brought it down from 26 to 16%. Before handing over to them, they for 4 whole years could not take it below 13%. As I'm speaking to you now, 91-day treasury bill in most of the banks, if you go now, minimum you get will be 25% thereabout. That's how far it's gone. Fast it's gone again. It's gone to the levels that they were where we took it down from around 2014, 15 and bringing it down to 2016. They've taken it right back there. So how on earth could you be blaming the foundations that you've met? The foundation you met was solid foundation. That's the foundation that gave you, for example, $6.2 billion of gross international reserves. That's solid foundation. That same foundation gave you infrastructure fund, which we were not privileged to have. That same foundation gave you stabilization fund. When they were in trouble during the COVID, the first thing they want to do is to dip their hand in the stabilization fund. Somebody's farsightedness is what actually set up that stabilization fund. And we handed those to you. We handed it to you what you call the bank that they have used for their political whatever that they've been making a lot of noise about. There's a bank. We actually set up that as a bank and handed it over to you. because we had the foresight to think that if we are going to, for example, go into an attempt to reduce the levels of import into the country and help companies to be able to be competitive here, we needed to have that in terms of reducing import and increasing our export level. We handed that to you. We also had already dealt with the subsidies. I mean, we brought, for example, the ESLA, which actually took away all the legacy debt in the energy sector and gave you ESLA that on a yearly basis was giving you 300 million. That's a lot. We have set up the Tuabo gas. That's a complete game changer because it reduces, for example, the amount of dependence that we had on crude oil. And the savings alone we're getting from that is a minimum of $300 million. Handed that to you. We have solved Doomsaw. Doomsaw that no previous government had been able to solve. Since 1992, we have struggled with this period. Anytime Akosomo that takes a hit, we were in trouble. There was not enough power. Even though, as a result of the coming of oil production, the power demand in our country started going up. We're talking minimum, 10% on a yearly basis. We came and met that situation, and within a matter of maximum 4 years, solved that and handed those beautiful foundations to you. So why on earth will you be able to point any finger at the previous government? And there were so many more things. I've not talked about the what you call the most massive portfolio of investment ever handed to any government in the history of our country. Whether it's health infrastructure, educational infrastructure, roads, I mean what you call ports and harbors. For example, let me give you an example. I was Minister of Transport, so I can give you two big examples. Ghana Port and Harbor Authority and Airport Company, they became so solid that on their own balance sheet, they literally could borrow massive amount. Ghana Port and Harbor was able to go into a consortium that borrowed close to 1.5 billion to do one of the most far-reaching renovation that could ever been done to the port in any part of Africa. Those were done under us, handed over to you. So how on earth can you complain about the foundation that you've met? You hear them talk about banking sector crisis. I mean, it's a joke. It's a complete joke. If you go into that story very well, let me give you a typical scenario. This is not the first time even Ghana would have had an issue, banking or financial issue. PNDC met what you call a banking sector that was very challenged. A lot of what you call the non-performing loans at the time were very, very high. Okay. What did PNC do? PNC do exactly what you call government that are competent, government that care about our nation do. You basically set up a system by which you can isolate those non-performing sector. You recapitalize those banks. If there are people who are in charge of those banks that needed to be punished, you punish them. But you make sure you do whatever it takes to preserve confidence in the banking sector. And that's exactly what it is. We set up what you call the financial sector adjustment we call it FinSap at the time. It's such a long time, so I may forget some of the full word. But FinSap was set up to be able to deal with that banking sector. And on the back of that, the banking sector became strong again and became one of the main reasons why the economy is continuing to grow. When we came into office in 2009, we met TOR. Ghana Commercial Bank was on its knees. I became a board member of Ghana Commercial Bank, so I know that bank was on its knees, literally threatening to collapse because of a massive debt that was coming from TOR. What did we do? We didn't go about making the noise NPP was making, shouting about how Ghana Commercial Bank is going to collapse and making customers to become afraid to go and run at the bank and take their money. No. We went about it quietly, recapitalized that bank, dealt with the debt, and ensured that confidence came back again, and the bank came back on stream. That's what you do. So the problem that we're talking about, we in 2016, because of the program we are doing at the IMF, we already have started what you call an asset quality review of the banking sector because it was part of the program. So we knew some of the banks that were already in distress. But the enabling laws were not in place. So we needed to make sure those laws were passed. That's what the Act 930 was about, to ensure that we had legislation that will enable us to deal with some of these banks that were in distress. And in the process, the plan, if we had one power, was to make sure that first and foremost, those what you call banks that were in distress, you deal with what you call the particular asset that were not well. You recapitalize them, just like it's done, like I told you we did during the FinSap and we did during the Ghana Commercial Bank when we came in power in 2009. You make directors who were guilty, you make sure you punish them. But you always want to make sure there's confidence in the banking sector. You want to make sure you don't panic the system by making noises about how banks were collapsing and then creating panic situation where depositors will take away their money, people who are no more having confidence. That's what you do. So, and Nigeria had the same situation. In 2009 when we came, Nigeria was having that same problem. Sanusi was then the Bank of Ghana, who was then Nigerian Bank of Ghana governor. central bank governor, did exactly the same thing. He dealt at that time. They were having a crisis of over $9 billion. I think close to $9 billion in terms of crisis in the banking sector. About 9 banks were defaulting. They were almost about collapsing. The same thing Sanusi did. He made sure that the directors who were supposed to be in charge were punished. They recapitalized those banks, set up a system by which those monies can be retrieved as and when the banks became profitable. That's what you do. You don't come and then destroy the whole system, create massive job losses, destroy indigenous banks just because you have your own political agenda, and 10 hours later and say that the country should applaud you for using 25 billion to solve a problem that you could have used maximum 9 billion to solve. So for them to even try to blame anybody should tell you about their lack of candor, their lack of truth.
So you have the opinion that what happened at the banking sector was their own approach.
Absolutely.
Their own.
Absolutely. I mean, as I told you, the examples abound, not just in Ghana. We did it in the PNDC time and made sure the banking sector came strong. We did it when NDC came to power under Prof. Mills and John Mahama, and we resolved the problem that could have, because you know how strong GCB is as far as the banking sector in this country is concerned. You allow GCB to go down, it becomes toxic. It can affect the whole banking sector. We solved that problem with minimum noise. So for you to meet this problem and not be able to solve it without spending all this money tells you how incompetent you are, and actually how much unpatriotic you are. Because the process, what they've done is that they destroy a lot of the indigenous banks. If a Heritage Bank, for example, didn't even have a problem. Heritage Bank did not even have any crisis. They were not in distress in any way. But because of their own political witch hunting, the same thing they've done to Radio Gold and other people, that's exactly what they needed to destroy, because they feel it perceive the owners to be people who were not what you call aligned to their regime. So that tells you who they are. So you can't really be blaming your predecessor. If you continue doing that, it simply means that you don't want to accept the fact that you are mismanaging the country. You feel that you can deceive the people by constantly blaming somebody else. In some way, somehow, the people will continue allowing you to remain in office.
So, are you suggesting that if the NDC was in charge, we wouldn't have seen the banks go down the way they did?
No way. Because you know what? Let me give you a typical scenario. It's just like you drive to the filling station, and then somehow, maybe Patrick, your producer, calls you and say, hey, it looks like there is a shortage of fuel. So when you go, you normally go and you buy your maybe 200 cedis. Instead of buying 200 cedis, suddenly you say, what? I want to fill my tank. You know why you're doing that? You're doing that out of panic. And that is the beginning of what you call crisis. When people start panicking. So the way to approach this issue is to make sure, first and foremost, you do not panic people. But when we started hearing noises being made, the finance minister was making noise all over about how the banks were in distress, how they were going to collapse. What you do is that you are sowing panic in the system. So people who have no business taking away their funds from banks immediately start going and running at those banks. And no matter how strong any bank is, when people start running at you, you collapse. Because the banking system is like that, there's not money that is there to be able to pay everybody who comes at the same time. It's not possible. The very nature of the banking is like that. It's an issue of trust. It's an issue of confidence. So, but with the moment you create that lack of trust, lack of confidence, you have destroyed the sector. That really is what it is. The problem that we had in the banking sector was not a problem that could not be resolved. I'm telling you that much bigger problems were faced. PNDC faced equal problem. It was solved with that problem. We had some huge problem with Ghana Commercial Bank. It was solved with that problem. In Nigeria, much bigger problem was faced. Sanusi and the rest solved it without any problem. Did you hear any banks? Job losses in Nigeria, banks that were closed? No, those banks today have even become stronger. Many of those banks that were having problems in Nigeria have become even stronger. That's what you do, but not in the case of Ghana. Why? Because they had an agenda. And the agenda is to make sure, you take opportunity and collapse banks that are perceived not to be close and aligned to you.
You're suggesting that the government of Ghana intentionally collapsed banks.
Absolutely.
Because of an agenda.
Absolutely.
Knowing the impact it will have on the economy.
But do they really care? Do they really care?
But that's basically their work, to care about the Ghanaian economy and how it looks.
That's not exactly what they did even to even what you call stations like Radio Go. They don't care. Do they care, for example, about the fact that many people who were employed in Radio Gold and other facilities that they closed, how they were going to survive for the period. You don't care. As far as they are concerned, they are getting their agenda. That's what I told you. That's who they are. That's who they are. So the last time when they were in power, like I mentioned to you, they say, well, let us make sure we use the what's called the how do you call it, the fast track prosecution to totally destroy our opponent, because that's what their mentality is. Their mindset is every opportunity destroy, because they are thinking about how we can hold on to power at all costs. We don't care the consequences. So that's really what the mindset is. It's generally, I think it's part of their DNA that every opportunity they have, they must destroy who they perceive to be their enemy, because they feel the only way they can survive and thrive is when somebody else is destroyed, as opposed to creating an opportunity for everybody to be able to do the best they can and show that in spite of the presence of others, we are good enough to be able to compete and do better. That's what the mindset of people who want to do what is right is. That's what we are in the NDC. We don't believe that, for example, we need to completely destroy our opponent in order to survive. No, we want to show that even with the presence of our opponent, we have better ideas and better ways of doing things in order to be able to win the confidence of people, but not these people. So that's what you have seen. So today the economy has completely tanked. The economy is on its knees. Different aspects of the country, you can see trouble all over the place. I mean, for a country that, as at 2010, 2011, we were talking about growth, the highest growth in the history of our country under Prof. Mason John Mahama, 14%, and not just in terms of oil, also in terms of non-oil. That means genuine economic growth. We saw 33 months of continuous, what you call a single-digit inflation. I mean, we had a B+ rating. When they came into office, they got B, and we will not hear. We will not have any peace. B, common B. We had B+. Yet this country was not drowning in noise. They got B. And they created the impression that it was the most extraordinary thing that could ever happen. I'm talking about a country that the world had hope in. You take over that country, and you have had access to over 500 billion in terms of revenue. The NDC for 8 long years, the maximum we had was about 200 billion. Within a matter of less than 6 years, you've had access to 500 billion plus, more than 300 billion in excess of what we had. And you cannot, for example, you can only show the things that we were able to do with the what you call the 200 billion. You can only show that today. It's almost 6 years in office. And at the same time, you can even maintain even the what you call the foundations of the economy, the stability of the economy. You are running aground everything. In the process, family and friends are benefiting, taking advantage and enjoying yourself. And it's a terrible situation we are in.
Well, if you just join us, we're having a conversation with Honorable Fifi Fiavi Kwetey in the wake of the mid-year budget review. We are headed towards the IMF once again. But before I come back to that, there's one other aspect. You talk about solving doom. So you also said, aside the banking sector, your process of solving doom. So you left them excess capacity charges, which ran into billions, which they had to settle. And the finance minister also mentioned recently that the infrastructure portfolio you were talking about came with arrears, huge billions of arrears that was left to them that they needed to pay. All those they've been able to effectively deal with.
You know, there again is a problem. You know, the last time I was on Alaji, remember I told you the real problem of the country is what I call a credibility crisis. It's a crisis of character. And that is really the very foundation of the problem we have. That we are dealing with a group of people who simply have no credibility. They have no character. They have no truth. So it's a truth deficit that we have. And that deficit is what is manifesting in what you call the fiscal deficit, the balance of payment deficit, and all kinds of deficit that we are seeing in the economy. Because the people who are in charge themselves have no truth. They have no character. They have no principle. So it's a massive credibility issue. Listen, how could you even say that excess capacity was left for you when, as we speak, we're talking about installed capacity at the moment is about 5,300. In 2012, when we were on the campaign trail, our manifesto said, as a result of the fact that we had gone into an oil economy and there was so much demand for power, we needed to move our installed capacity from 2,500 to about 5,000. We already could see in 2012 that we needed to actually double what you call the install capacity.
Okay.
Because we're talking about a country that was growing very quickly, and therefore the demand for power was small. So we needed to have that. As we speak, as a result of those investments that we put in place, install capacity today has gone up to about 5,003. But in terms of what you call demand for power, sometime I think in last year, 2021, March of 2021, there was a particular day that the demand alone was about 3,500 megawatts. 3,500 megawatts. Now, at that time, if you take, for example, the install capacity and the fact that there's always going to be the need for a certain reserve margin to be kept in case, for example, in case some of the plants go down, you need to have a certain margin to be able to survive. So you can see clearly that, listen, we are nowhere near excess capacity. Okay. The finance minister appeared in parliament, and then he was put to what you call street proof. Mr. Finance Minister, how much have you spent in terms of excess capacity on an annual basis? The Finance Minister, on floor of parliament, where he knows he cannot lie because he's under oath, came out and said, listen, the maximum we have spent in a period of 4 years between 2017 to 2020 was what, $937 million. Or is it 907? Anyway, it was less than 1 billion. Over 900 million dollars. That's the maximum for 4 years. Now, so when you hear the vice president or you hear the president today saying that what, as a result of excess capacity, they've had to spend 17 billion, it's the same. It's the same group of people who simply do not, in fact, they are simply not capable of telling the truth. Because as far as they are concerned, the only way they can survive is simply to lie and blame somebody. When there's a problem, blame somebody. If you cannot blame John Mahama, you cannot blame NDC, then you look for another thing to blame. Then you blame what you call COVID, you must blame somebody for your problem because the problem cannot be you. So their own finance minister shows beyond doubt that it is a complete lie. Now, all this talk about take or pay, what is it? You see, they make it look as if it's something extraordinary. As we talk today, some of those same IPPs that they were talking about, for example, Car Power or AXA, they have had what you call their contract renewed. If the take or pay were so bad, why have you renewed the contract of those same companies? Clearly, it means that you are just speaking from two sides of your mouth. You're just lying. Convenient lying because you feel maybe ordinary people may not understand. And really, that unfortunately has been the issue. They believe that a lot of ordinary people are not smart. They're not intelligent. That's what they think. So, Charlie, just lie. Just continue hoping that somehow by throwing all these lies about, the people will be able to pay. Because for them, ultimately, anything they can do, as long as they can get power, they're fine. As long as they can get power, as fine. If the country gets destroyed, if people are dying, if businesses are collapsing, if the schools, as long as they get power, they can throw about all these peanuts left and right and be shouting on the using trumpet and shout and make noise about. That's it. But you don't understand that governing a country means what is worth doing well. Do it well. Let the quality be good. And on the back of that quality, the people will say, you know what? We think that these guys are good. So we vote for. But they believe that, listen, just throw about. So it's more quantitative. Oh, we've been able to build 115 factories. So we are doing industrialization. 115 factories. Doing what? One factory alone. It's Bogas. One alone drafts every single one of those put together. If I not just drafts it, it's like light years in advance. That is what you call a genuine group does. You do things that are quality, that bring real change. Not throwing little peanuts left, right, and center and going on platform and shouting and say, oh, you know what, vote for us because we can do. And that's exactly what they have done. That's what they are crippling every sector. Contractors are on their knees. For example, the first quarter of this year, they estimated they were going to spend about 1.3 billion cedis to be able to pay contractors. At the end of the first quarter, 38 billion is what they were used to pay. It tells you the trouble. They are basically on their knees, and the country is grinding to a halt as a result of that.
I want to ask you a question about where do you think we are? Because I want to find out. You're saying the country is grinding to a halt. Yeah. We are trying to get a program with the IMF. You are listening to government talking about making cuts and also being a bit more prudent among others. Honorable, what do you think? What is your own projection of where we are headed to?
The chicken have come home to roost. They thought somehow they could continue lying their way. And they basically lied for so long, and they thought that will continue. But you know, like Baumia is so sad, when the fundamentals are weak, your foreign exchange will expose you. Now, the collapse of the cedi under their watch has been the complete exposure that has come. And that collapse is happening at the time where currencies all over sub-Saharan Africa are not collapsing. So it tells you that it's coming completely from their mismanagement. And that is happening because the international investors that have been their hope have finally seen that these guys cannot be trusted. You see you see all the noise we're making about policy credibility when NDC was doing the IMF program. They say, they are going for policy credibility. And all that was also part of their deliberate lies and distortion. Policy credibility simply means that IMF can appreciate that, listen, you have good ideas. Okay. But IMF is saying that, you know what, even though you have good ideas, the investors out there want more assurance. It's like you, Senna, for example, you go to your bankers. Your bankers say, you know, Senna, yeah, we can see that your idea relating to your business is not bad. But Senna, no, we want a bigger guarantee to tell us that, listen, when it gets to the crunch, you will not back away from some of the things that you claim you are going to do. And that's what IMF symbolizes. So policy credibility simply means IMF being at your back and giving an assurance to the market, to the investors out there, that, listen, we are the back of these policies, and therefore have confidence that these policies will go through. That's all policy credibility is about. But they made it look as if policy credibility means you have no idea, you don't know anything, you are incompetent, and therefore another person is managing your economy. Today, they have gone back to the IMF literally because they are so discredited in their policies that they need IMF to provide that policy credibility for them. Okay. Because the investors out there have absolutely lost hope in them. They have racked up so much debt within such a short space that this country literally is reaching levels where we are in debt unsustainable region. Okay. Like my good friend Atu Fosun said just a couple of days ago, this actually is a country that now is what you call highly indebted, even though we are supposed to be a middle income country. Our debt basically has gone through the roof. You're talking about, as we speak, on a yearly basis now, we are talking close to what? 50 billion simply to be able to take care of our debt servicing. That's massive. In 2016, we're talking about 10 billion. We're talking about 5 times that to be able to take care of your debt. For every tax revenue that we have, if you have 100 cedi as tax revenue, about 91. In fact, at the first quarter, 108. You imagine that you have 100 cedi, but you need 108 to take care of your debt. So meaning that for every 100 you have, it's not even enough. You have to actually borrow and add to that 100 in order to take care of your debt. That is where they have taken this country. Why would any investor out there have any confidence in you? Because the investor out there, his number one concern is that the money I'm investing in your country, I'm able to get it and get my interest. Now, if he sees that you even need to even borrow to take care of even paying his debt, then what assurance does he have? It means that you are simply in trouble. And so that is really what is going on now. So what is important is for the government to start showing truth and credibility. For the investors out there to start believing that the lies have stopped. So that, for example, when you mention that this is my deficit, the investors can know, okay, this truly is true deficit. As opposed to the lie where your deficit is supposed to be high, then you lie to everybody that my deficit is not high. They started doing this way back from 2018, 2019. Instead of disclosing the real deficit, they were hiding some of them below the line, thinking that they were fooling the people of Ghana. Meanwhile, IMF and the rest, you can't fool them. So all the lies you were telling, coming to parliament and presenting and saying, oh, we are having nice. You see, that's something, their real foundation is the foundation of deception. That is where the whole problem is coming. It's a credibility crisis. So they have to start telling the truth. And telling the truth means you have to start showing responsibility, taking accountability, eating the humble pie, accepting that you have mismanaged, and then asking that, listen, give me an opportunity, let me correct some of the mistakes I've made. As opposed to continue to lie that everything is great, we are great managers, only problem we've had is COVID and Ukraine and the NDC, they cause a problem. If you continue doing that, nobody out there will believe you, because you don't even have the capacity to accept your mistakes. You don't have the capacity to take responsibility and become accountable for your own mistake. And as long as you have that, trust me, we'll continue having.
So the very first step for you
is to show truth-telling, absolutely accepting that you have made mistakes. And then on the back of that, you then can accept that, okay, these are the mistakes I made in the past. I want to be able to do better. But as long as you continue denying that you were making mistakes, you will continue lying. That's why I'm telling you that, like you are driving. You are driving in the wrong direction. You are being told, but you are too proud to have said I'm going around. So I'm driving continuously. Let's say I'm supposed to go to Aflao, but I'm heading towards Kumasi. And every step of the way I'm being stopped. No, you are going the wrong way. You are supposed Aflao is not here. You are who I'm going to the Aflao saying I'm driving. Meanwhile, you're going the wrong direction. That is what we are facing. A group of people who just are proud, who are not humble enough to accept the fact that they have mismanaged the economy, they have run the economy aground, who don't want to accept that because they are afraid that when they do, it means that okay, the people we took over for were actually better than us, and people will therefore will laugh at us because they feel so good. That is the problem. That is the beginning of it.
Well, no, but we have to be bringing this to a close.
Time has flown by so quickly.
Yes, but I just wanted to find out from you. First of all, I realize that you take your Christian faith seriously.
Let's say it this way. I call myself a much more spiritual person than a religious person.
Okay.
So let's say it this way, that of course I come from a very strong Christian background, but I'm extremely very spiritual. That's all I can say. Extremely very spiritual.
Then you must be a big fan of the National Cathedral.
Actually, it's precisely because of that. That's why I know that it's actually a complete insult to the people of Ghana.
The National Cathedral.
A complete insult to the people of Ghana. Because anybody with basic knowledge, even of religion, and especially of God, will know that God does not care about temples built with hands. He cares only about the temple of our hearts. Because that really is where the difference is. You see, there again, let me tell you, one of the biggest problems we have in this country is what you call people having a form of godliness, but lacking completely the substance of godliness.
A form of
godliness, but lacking the substance of godliness. So they think, for example, that religion and spirituality is all about all these external forms. Let me build a cathedral, and if I build a cathedral somehow, God will be happy, and the blessings of God will come down into the country. That's sometimes what we do even at the individual level. People, for example, in this country and many parts of Africa think that if I can put somehow Jesus is Lord on my business, then my business will prosper. If I have a tractor and I put on it, Jehovah provide, then somehow God is going to protect. Meanwhile, people in Japan don't have any of that, and their businesses are doing better. People in Singapore don't have that, their businesses are doing better. People in China don't have any of that, because what makes the difference are the principles that bring transformation. It's not all this what you call pontification and all the empty rhetorics and using forms thinking that you can deceive God. People think you can bribe God by using all these externalities. God doesn't care. The only thing God truly cares about are hearts that are genuine after truth, after love, and after justice. In fact, Jesus called them the weightier matters of the law: truth, justice, and love. Those are the three. Now, so when you are operating out of truth, you're operating out of justice, you're operating out of love, you absolutely have lost it. And Nakufuado and Baumia absolutely have no idea about truth. They have no idea about genuine love. They have no idea about justice. If they had idea about justice, they would not have inflicted the pain inflicted on Radio Gold, inflicted on all these companies that have been destroyed. Over 300 savings and loans companies have been destroyed in this country. Contractors whose businesses are collapsing. Opponents that they are targeting, lies that they are inflicting in society, degeneration that has happened. They will not have done any of that. So this cathedral thing is a complete joke. Anybody who truly cares about country will not be placing that as a priority at all. It is somebody who think that this is going to be some kind of legacy, so that tomorrow when people remember what a terrible president he was, what a selfish leader he was, what a corrupt leader he was, somehow his people will come and say, oh yeah, at least he built a cathedral. Cathedral? What cathedral? The only cathedral we need is a cathedral of the heart. A heart that actually can tend towards God. A heart that can go towards truth, towards justice, towards love, to building a society in a Ghana that will be great and strong, built on the foundation of truth. That's all.
Fifi Kwetey wants to be General Secretary of the National Democratic Congress. I've heard that.
I know. I definitely have an intention to make myself available at the highest level for my party. But out of respect for the incumbent, I've not yet made a declaration. But I'm sure it shouldn't be long.
If the incumbent decides to contest,
out of respect for him, I said if he decides to contest, I will not contest. But I do have a feeling that having been there for the number of years he's been there, I think he feels maybe it's time for him to be able to take another look. And so on the back of that, we are ready. We are ready to help our party at when the opportunity.
What makes Fifi Kwetey the right person to replace Mr. Johnson as Ketia in case he decides not to contest?
Somehow, I think our backgrounds have been a lot of our backgrounds are very similar. People do not know that. Johnson Asidun Ketiaf incidentally was a stockbroker, just like I was a stockbroker. People do not know that. In fact, the first shares my family bought, the Ashanti Gold, at that time he was working at NTAC. I was not yet a stockbroker. He was the one who helped us buy. So he actually has a background as a stockbroker, the same way I do. He actually was a former deputy minister for Agric. I was an Agric minister. He was a former MP. I was an MP. He actually moved to the party, and I think going back to take those positions will be simply continuing from where he's left off. And above all, I mean, being able to, let's say, take it to the next level, because we need to be able to go to the next level as a party.
Oh.